Hey everyone, this is Kieran from MSK Physio. Today's exercise is the face pull, and the face pull is an exercise that helps us develop the back of the shoulder along with our shoulder blade muscles, the ones that help pull our shoulder blades back. It's also going to work a little bit on our back muscles and potentially even our toe flexors, our calves, and our hamstrings and glutes and stuff, depending on what our setup is. It's a really great exercise for developing the back of the shoulder, say after a shoulder injury, or if you have a bit of an imbalance, then you might find it's a nice way to figure out where that imbalance lies. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that in the video. So with the face pull, a lot of the time we see it being prescribed or used in a way, and this isn't wrong, but used in a way that's either very horizontal or sort of it's anchored above you and you're pulling down. And of course it's got use there. But it's useful also to think about this exercise in the context of the arc or 180 degrees that our shoulder's capable of. So we're talking about this arc here, that 180 degrees. And I can pull from any degree along that plane. And so this is going to change which muscle groups I bias. And the reason that's important is because let's just say someone hurt themselves like starting the lawnmower. You know, that's down here and you're pulling this way. Versus someone who hurts themselves doing, say, a pull-up. Or say maybe you didn't really hurt yourself in a pulling movement, but you hurt yourself in a pushing movement and you need to develop, you know, some sort of symmetry or balance between the front and the back shoulders. And that might be like a bench press or a push-up. And so you might pull horizontally. So it's nice to think about it in this context of an arc so that when you're using it, you're actually developing the range or the vector that's challenging for you. So as an example, if I were to set it up down here, then when I'm pulling upwards, and it's called kind of like a vertical pull. You know, it's maybe not perfectly on the 0 degree, but slightly off. And when I pull, I'm just going straight up. Some of the nuances around the movement depend on whether you're standing or sitting or kneeling. And that's because that's your contact points on the ground, and therefore that's your stability points. So how that might influence things, I'll show you an example, is if I'm pulling from here, and if I put my weight more into the front of my foot. So I just lean forward. So now my toes are kind of gripping down to make sure I don't fall over. If I pull up, that's as far as I can pull, right? So I can't actually pull further than that with my arms. I can try, but it won't go. To get it higher, I'd either have to arch my back, which would be a bit of a false pull, or I need to shift my weight back into my heels. And so by putting the weight back into my heels, now I can actually pull up towards my chin. And the difference there is just that if I'm on the edge of my base of support, which is my foot, so forward onto the edge of my toes, my body's a little more concerned with don't fall over. And if I'm more worried about falling over, then I'm going to be less able to demonstrate power or flexibility, and sometimes strength as well. Whereas if I'm in a much more stable position, I'm using my whole foot, it's not like I have to go and set a toe or something. I just shift some weight backwards into my heels. Then I can actually demonstrate more range and strength and potentially power as well, depending on what your baseline capacities are. So this is a really nice way to train the opposite of, say, you're doing a lot of overhead press or, say, dips. This is a nice way to get that complementary pull. Now, if I anchored it upwards, and we start talking about the face pull aspect of it, the idea is that no matter where you anchor it, you're just pulling towards your face, okay? Very simple, don't need to make it complicated. As far as the grip goes, something to consider for people that maybe have flexible or inflexible tight shoulders is that the more mobile the attachment is, then the less flexible my shoulders have to be. So the reason being is that if I have something that is a little bit more sort of, you know, unwilling to move, this is not flexible, this is sturdy, I can't bend it, then that means that as I pull, my shoulders are going to have to be flexible enough to get into certain positions to get the full range, right? So if I pull this way, I have the flexibility in my shoulder to go backwards, and my hand can be right here. If I turn my hand a little bit this way, my ability to pull decreases. So that's my elbow going back. If I turn my hand down, I can get further back. And some of that just has to do with different muscles being longer or shorter based on your hand position and how that filters up into the shoulder. But if I was doing a face pull with this, my hand's in a very different position, so I'm gonna have to have more shoulder flexibility. Versus this is a little more flexible, and therefore it's not gonna require as much of that shoulder flexibility because my hand and wrist can maneuver around as I pull. So just something to consider. So if you have tight shoulders, maybe consider a flexible option. If you're pretty flexible, then choose whatever suits you. Now, if I come down into a kneeling position, I could be like this, I could be like this, I could sit, I could even come into this position. None of these are bad, and you can just play around with it. You might have more carryover into some of the more upright positions, like on a knee or, standing up, but this is a fine option too. And it's just gonna ask more of my pulling muscles to be able to do this. Something else to note is I'm looking up at whatever I'm pulling from. So wherever that anchor is, I'm gonna keep my eyes on that vector. And some of that has to do with just getting the neck in a particular position, which is sort of gonna help the pulling. Kind of has that range effect too. So if I look up at the anchor and I pull, I can get down to my chin. If I look down into here and I pull, I can't get down into my chin, and so I'm getting a little bit less range. Even if I bring my head up and look back up, I'm still not quite getting there. But now if I do the extra bit, I can go. Whereas if I come and look down again, that's as much as I can pull. And if I bring my chin up, then I can get that extra little bit. And that's just from me looking at the object, okay? So a few things to think about. If we summarize, you're thinking about where is the anchor? I'm gonna find the height and the vector that is challenging for me, something that feels difficult. You could do it one-handed or two-handed. I'm going to think about the attachment. Is it a flexible mobile attachment, or is it a rigid attachment that my shoulders are going to have to maneuver around? I'm going to think a little bit about the weight. I want to make sure I'm not feeling like I'm falling over, because then I'll have less range and to demonstrate, and I also won't be able to be as strong throughout that range. And ultimately, just pull towards your face. Okay? If you have any questions with this, please ask in the comments section. But really nice exercise, as we talked about, for just developing back of the shoulder, shoulder blade retractors, and like I said, even some of those back muscles, because they're going to have to hold you upright so you don't fall over. So they might find uses in this for like even back rehab, not just shoulder rehab. If you like this video, then please hit like below. Otherwise, to check out more of our content in the future, you can subscribe to our channel by clicking our logo over here. And to check out our latest video, click up here.